My name is Eleanor Davis, and I'm 68 years old. What I'm about to tell you is the most humiliating, degrading experience of my entire life, followed by the sweetest revenge I've ever delivered. This is the story of how my son and daughter-in-law thought it would be funny to feed me dog food at Thanksgiving dinner, and how I made sure they'd never forget the consequences of treating me like garbage. But before I tell you about that awful Thanksgiving, I need you to understand how we got there, because this wasn't just one incident. It was the culmination of 3 years of disrespect, manipulation, and cruelty that I endured in my own home. 3 years ago, my son Kevin called me with what seemed like a reasonable request. Kevin was 35 at the time, married to a woman named Brittany for about 2 years. They'd been renting an expensive apartment in the city, and Kevin said they were trying to save money to buy their own house. "Mom," he said over the phone, "Brittany and I have been talking, and we were wondering if we could move in with you for a while, just temporarily, maybe 6 months to a year. We're throwing away so much money on rent, and if we could save that, we'd have enough for a down payment on a house." I lived alone in a 4-bedroom house in a nice suburb of Chicago. My husband had died 8 years earlier, and the house often felt too big and empty. The thought of having my son around again, of not eating dinner alone every night, actually sounded nice. "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "You know you're always welcome here." Kevin sounded relieved. "Thanks, Mom. We really appreciate it. And don't worry, we'll help with bills and groceries and everything. Brittany's actually excited about it. She said she's been wanting to get to know you better." That should have been my first warning sign. Brittany had never shown any interest in getting to know me before. At their wedding, she'd barely spoken to me except for the obligatory photos. At family gatherings, she'd spend most of her time on her phone or talking to her own friends and family. But I pushed those doubts aside. Maybe marriage had made her want to connect more with Kevin's family. They moved in on a Saturday in September. I'd spent the whole week before preparing. I cleaned out the master bedroom upstairs, the room I'd shared with my husband, because it was the biggest and had its own bathroom. I figured they'd be more comfortable there. I moved myself into one of the smaller bedrooms down the hall. I even bought new sheets and towels, put fresh flowers in the room, tried to make it welcoming. When they arrived with their moving truck, Brittany walked through the house with a critical eye. She was 28 years old, tall and thin, with long dark hair that she wore in a perpetually perfect ponytail. She had a way of looking at things, at me, like she was evaluating whether they met her standards. "This is cute," she said, looking around my living room. "Very traditional. We'll probably want to update some things, make it feel more modern." "Update things?" I said, confused. "But this is temporary, right? You're only staying—" "Oh, of course." Kevin jumped in quickly. "She just means little things, Mom. You know, maybe rearrange the furniture to make better use of the space. Brittany's really good at interior design." I should have said no right then. Should have established boundaries. But I wanted to be accommodating. I wanted them to feel at home. So I just smiled and said, "Sure, whatever makes you comfortable." That was my first mistake. Within 2 weeks, my living room looked completely different. Brittany had moved my comfortable old couch, the one my husband and I picked out together 20 years ago, down to the basement. She'd brought in a sleek, modern sectional that looked nice, but was uncomfortable to sit on. My family photos that had been on the mantel were packed away in boxes. My curtains were replaced with vertical blinds. My warm, cozy living room became cold and minimalist. When I protested about the photos, Brittany said, "Eleanor, those frames are so outdated. We're creating a more cohesive aesthetic. Don't worry, your pictures are safe in the basement if you want to look at them." She called me Eleanor, never Mom or even Mrs. Davis. Just Eleanor, like I was her roommate, not her mother-in-law. The changes kept coming. Brittany took over my kitchen, rearranging all my cabinets and drawers. She threw away my old Tupperware and replaced it with matching glass containers. She bought new dishes and packed mine away. When I couldn't find things in my own kitchen anymore, she'd sigh impatiently and show me where things were supposed to go. "We're helping you organize," she'd say. "You should thank us. This is so much more efficient." Kevin rarely intervened. When I'd try to talk to him about it, he'd say, "Mom, Brittany's just trying to help. You know how she is. She likes things a certain way. Just go with it. We'll be out of here soon anyway." But they weren't out of there soon. 6 months passed, then a year. Every time I asked about their house hunting, Kevin would have an excuse. The market was too expensive. They needed to save a little more. They'd found a house but lost it to another buyer. Always something. Meanwhile, I was slowly being pushed out of my own home. Brittany started having friends over without asking me. I'd come home from the grocery store to find 6 or 7 people I'd never met sitting in my living room, drinking wine from my wine glasses, eating snacks off my dishes. When I'd walk in, their conversations would pause, and they'd look at me like I was intruding. "Oh, Eleanor's home," Brittany would say with fake sweetness. "Everyone, this is Kevin's mom. She's letting us stay here." The way she said it always bothered me, like I was doing them this huge favor that they were graciously accepting, rather than acknowledging that this was my house, and they were guests. One night, about a year into them living with me, I was in my bedroom trying to sleep when I heard loud music and laughter from downstairs. It was nearly midnight on a Tuesday. I had a doctor's appointment early the next morning. I put on my robe and went downstairs to find Brittany and about 10 of her friends having what looked like a full party in my living room. "Excuse me," I said, having to raise my voice over the music. "It's midnight. I have to be up early tomorrow." Brittany turned to me with an annoyed expression. "Eleanor, we're just having a few friends over. It's not that late. It is for me," I said firmly. "This is my house, and I'm asking you to keep it down." One of her friends, a young woman with bright blue hair, laughed and whispered something to the person next to her. They were laughing at me, in my own home. Brittany rolled her eyes but turned down the music slightly. "Fine, sorry if we're disturbing your beauty sleep," her friends snickered. I felt my face get hot with embarrassment and anger, but I didn't know what to do. Kevin was at some work event and wouldn't be home until late. So I just went back upstairs, put earplugs in, and lay in bed feeling like a stranger in my own house. The next morning, I tried to talk to Kevin about it. "Your wife had a party here last night until 2 in the morning," I said. I couldn't sleep. "Kevin, this has to stop. You two need to find your own place." Kevin looked tired. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry. I'll talk to Brittany about it. But please be patient with us. We're so close to having enough saved for a house. Just a few more months." A few more months turned into another year, and Brittany's treatment of me got progressively worse. She started forgetting to save me dinner when she cooked for her, and Kevin, I'd come home from my book club or my volunteer work at the library to find them finishing dinner, with nothing left for me. "Oh, I didn't know what time you'd be home," Brittany would say with a shrug. "There's stuff in the fridge you can make yourself." She'd use my expensive face cream and my perfume without asking. When I'd buy groceries, she'd go through them and take whatever she wanted for her friends or her own use. When I labeled my food in the fridge, she'd make comments about how territorial I was being. "It's just food, Eleanor," she'd say. "We all live here. We're family. Why are you being so uptight about a yogurt?" But it wasn't about the yogurt. It was about respect. It was about feeling like I mattered in my own home. The worst part was how she'd talk about me when she thought I couldn't hear. I'd be in my room or in the basement doing laundry, and I'd hear her on the phone with her mother or her friends. "She's so annoying," Brittany would say. "She's always complaining about something. The music's too loud. We're eating her food. We moved her ugly furniture. God, I'll be so glad when we can afford our own place and don't have to deal with her anymore." Every word was like a knife. This was my house. I'd opened my home to them, tried to make them comfortable, and this was how she saw me, as an annoying obstacle to be tolerated. I tried to talk to Kevin about it multiple times, but he always made excuses for her. Brittany's just stressed about work. Mom. She didn't mean it that way, Mom. You're being too sensitive, Mom. Can't you just try to get along with her? It was always my fault. Always me who needed to be more understanding, more accommodating, more willing to let things go. By the time we got to Thanksgiving of last year, 2.5 years after they'd moved in, I was at my breaking point. I felt like a guest in my own home. No, worse than a guest. At least guests get treated with courtesy. I felt like an inconvenience, like a burden they had to tolerate until they could finally leave. But I still believed in family. I still thought that maybe if I tried hard enough, if I was kind enough, if I kept being the bigger person, things would get better. Brittany would realize how much I'd done for them. Kevin would stand up for me. We'd find a way to coexist peacefully. So when Thanksgiving approached, I decided to host a proper family dinner. I invited my daughter Rachel and her family. They lived about an hour away. And I spent days planning the menu, shopping for groceries, preparing dishes. I wanted it to be special. I wanted us to have a good day together, to remember what family was supposed to feel like. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I spent the entire day in the kitchen. I made my famous apple pie from scratch, my grandmother's cranberry sauce recipe, my special stuffing with sage and sausage. I prepared a green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, sweet potato casserole with marshmallows. Everything was made with love, with care, with the hope that maybe this could be a turning point. Brittany came into the kitchen while I was working and wrinkled her nose. Wow, that's a lot of traditional stuff. I was thinking we could do something more modern this year. Maybe a deconstructed turkey or a vegan option. I already bought a 20-pound turkey, I said, not looking up from the potatoes I was peeling. And I've been cooking these recipes for 30 years. This is how we do Thanksgiving in our family. Your family, Brittany muttered, but loudly enough for me to hear. Not everyone wants to eat heavy, old-fashioned food, Eleanor. I stopped peeling and looked at her. If you want to make something different for yourself, you're welcome to. But this is what I'm serving, she huffed and walked away. And I heard her complaining to Kevin in the other room about how controlling I was being about Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving Day arrived, and I was up at 6 in the morning to start the turkey. Rachel and her family were coming at 2 o'clock. I wanted everything to be perfect, or as perfect as it could be given the tension in the house. By 1 o'clock, the kitchen smelled amazing. The turkey was golden and beautiful. The pies were cooling on the counter. The side dishes were ready. I'd even set the dining room table with my good china, the set my mother had given me when I got married. I'd taken it out of storage for the occasion, polished every piece. The table looked beautiful with my fall centerpiece and cloth napkins. Brittany came downstairs dressed in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. She looked at the dining room table and frowned. "You're using the dining room?" she said. "I thought we'd eat in the kitchen. It's more casual." "It's Thanksgiving," I said. "We always eat in the dining room for Thanksgiving." "We're not at a formal dinner party, Eleanor. It's just family." "Exactly," I said. "It's family. That's why I want it to be nice." She rolled her eyes but didn't argue further. Kevin came down a few minutes later and actually complimented how good everything smelled, which gave me a brief moment of hope. Rachel arrived with her husband Tom and their 2 kids, Emma and Jacob, who were 8 and 10. I was so happy to see them. Rachel gave me a big hug and whispered, "How are you holding up?" Rachel knew what was going on. I'd confided in her over the past couple years about how difficult things had been with Kevin and Brittany. She'd encouraged me to kick them out multiple times, but I'd always made excuses. They're family. They need help. It'll get better. We all gathered in the living room for appetizers before dinner. I'd made a cheese board and some crackers with smoked salmon. Everyone was chatting, the kids were playing, and for a moment it almost felt normal, almost felt like family should feel. Then Brittany said loudly, "Eleanor, did you make a special meatloaf too? I know how much you love meatloaf." I was confused. "No, I didn't make meatloaf. Why would I make meatloaf for Thanksgiving?" "Oh, I just thought maybe you'd want some," she said. And there was something in her smile that made me uncomfortable. "You know, in case you didn't like the turkey." "I love turkey," I said slowly. "That's why I made turkey." Kevin laughed, a weird, nervous laugh, and changed the subject. I filed the interaction away as strange, but didn't think much more about it. At 2:30, I announced that dinner was ready. Everyone moved to the dining room, and I started bringing out the dishes from the kitchen. The turkey, the stuffing, the mashed potatoes, the casseroles, the cranberry sauce, the rolls. It was a feast, and I was proud of it. Rachel helped me carry things out while Brittany stayed seated scrolling on her phone. We all sat down, and I asked Tom to say grace, which he did. Then we started passing dishes around, filling our plates. The turkey was perfect, moist and flavorful. The stuffing was delicious. The cranberry sauce had just the right amount of tartness. Everyone was eating and complimenting the food, and I was starting to relax. Maybe this would be a good day after all. Then Brittany said, "Eleanor, you haven't tried your special meatloaf yet." I looked at her, confused again. "What meatloaf? I didn't make—" She reached across the table and pointed at my plate. "That, right there." I looked down at my plate. There was a slice of something brown and meat-like that I'd served myself from a dish I thought was the sausage for the stuffing. But looking at it more closely, it didn't look quite right. "What is this?" I asked, picking up my fork to examine it more closely. Kevin was making a weird face like he was trying not to laugh. Brittany was smiling in a way that made my stomach turn. "Try it," Brittany said. "Tell us what you think." I put a small piece in my mouth. The texture was strange, dense and grainy in a way that ground meat shouldn't be. The flavor was odd too, kind of gamey and mixed with something I couldn't identify. Rachel was watching with concern. "Mom, what's wrong?" I chewed slowly, trying to figure out what I was tasting. Then I swallowed and put my fork down. "This tastes strange." "What is this?" Brittany burst out laughing. Kevin was trying to hide his laughter behind his napkin, but I could see his shoulders shaking. "Oh my God, she actually ate it," Brittany said between laughs. "I can't believe she actually ate it." "Ate what?" Rachel demanded, standing up from her chair. "What did you give her?" Brittany was laughing so hard she could barely speak. She pulled out her phone and showed me a picture. It was a can of dog food. Premium dog food, the expensive kind. But dog food nonetheless. My blood went cold. "What?" "I mixed it with the sausage," Brittany gasped out between laughs. "I wanted to see if you'd notice." "Oh my God, this is hilarious. The look on your face." Kevin was full on laughing now too. "I told her you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You're always so proud of your cooking, Mom. But you can't even tell dog food from regular meat." I sat there frozen, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Rachel's face had gone red with anger. Tom was staring at Kevin and Brittany in disbelief. The kids looked confused and upset. "You fed me dog food?" I said slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. "It was just a joke," Brittany said, still laughing. "Oh my God, lighten up, Eleanor. It's not like it hurt you. It's probably cleaner than half the stuff you cook anyway." "A joke?" Rachel's voice was shaking with fury. "You fed my mother dog food as a joke? Oh, come on," Kevin said, his laughter dying down a bit. "It's funny. Mom's always so uptight about her cooking and her recipes. We were just messing with her." I looked at my son, my boy, the child I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for. And I didn't recognize him. Who was this person who thought humiliating his mother was funny? Who thought feeding me dog food at Thanksgiving dinner was an acceptable joke? "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" Kevin said. "Get out of my house," I said, louder this time. I stood up from the table, my whole body shaking. "Both of you, get out right now." "Mom, come on," Kevin said, and he actually looked annoyed like I was the one being unreasonable. It was just a joke. Don't be so dramatic. You fed me dog food in front of my grandchildren, and you're calling me dramatic? My voice was rising. You humiliated me in my own home on Thanksgiving, and you think I'm overreacting? It was Brittany's idea, Kevin said. And the fact that he was throwing his wife under the bus instead of taking responsibility made it even worse. I don't care whose idea it was, I shouted. You both thought it was okay. You both laughed at me. Get out of my house. Technically, we live here, Brittany said, and the smugness in her voice made me want to scream. You can't just kick us out. Watch me, I said. I want you out of this house tonight. Pack your things and leave. Mom, be reasonable. Kevin started. Reasonable? I felt tears streaming down my face. I have been reasonable for 2.5 years. I've let you take over my home. I've put up with Brittany's disrespect and your excuses. I've been patient and accommodating and understanding. And this is how you repay me? By feeding me dog food and laughing about it? Rachel came and put her arm around me. Mom's right. You two need to leave. This is between me and my mom. Kevin snapped at Rachel. No, it's not, Tom said, standing up. He was a big guy, over 6 feet tall. And when he stood up, Kevin actually looked intimidated. You disrespected this woman who opened her home to you. You fed her dog food as a joke. You're lucky she's just asking you to leave. If you'd done that to my mother, I'd throw you out myself. The kids were crying now, upset by all the yelling. Emma was hugging Rachel's legs and Jacob was staring at Kevin and Brittany like they were monsters. Fine, Brittany said, standing up and throwing her napkin on the table. We'll leave. Come on, Kevin. We don't need to stay here and be abused. Abused? I said incredulously. You're claiming abuse. Emotional abuse, Brittany said dramatically. You've been making us feel unwelcome for years, Eleanor. This house has been toxic for us. I almost laughed at the audacity. Almost. But I was too hurt, too angry, too exhausted to find any humor in anything she said. Kevin stood up reluctantly. He looked at me, and for a second I thought maybe he'd apologize. Maybe he'd realize how badly he'd messed up. But he just said, You're overreacting, Mom. When you calm down, you'll see that. Then they left the dining room. I heard them going upstairs, heard doors opening and closing. Rachel was hugging me while I cried. Tom had taken the kids into the living room to calm them down. Our Thanksgiving dinner sat on the table, getting cold, completely ruined. Within an hour, Kevin and Brittany had packed some bags and left. Kevin barely looked at me on their way out. Brittany made a point of taking several items that were actually mine. Decorative pillows from the living room, some kitchen gadgets, even a picture frame that had been in my family. You can have those, I said tiredly. I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. After they left, Rachel helped me clean up. We threw away the food. I couldn't bear to eat any of it now. We put away the china. We tried to salvage what we could of the day, but it was ruined. Mom, I'm so proud of you for standing up to them, Rachel said as we loaded the dishwasher. You should have done it a long time ago. I know, I said. I thought if I was patient enough, kind enough, things would get better. Some people don't deserve your patience and kindness, Rachel said firmly. Kevin and Brittany certainly don't. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my quiet house and felt a mix of emotions. Relief that they were gone, anger at what they'd done, hurt at my son's betrayal, but also fear. Kevin and Brittany had said they'd leave for the night, but they hadn't taken all their things. Their clothes were still in the closets, their toiletries still in the bathroom. They still had keys to my house. What if they came back? What if they refused to actually leave? Brittany was right. They'd been living here for 2.5 years. Did they have tenant rights? Could I legally force them out? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. And I made a decision. I was done being passive. done being the understanding mother who let herself be walked all over. If Kevin and Brittany wanted to play games, I could play games too. The next morning, Black Friday, I called a locksmith. He came out and changed all the locks on my house. Every door, every window lock, everything. When he asked why, I just said I'd had a security concern. He didn't need to know the details. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The best family lawyer in town. A woman named Patricia Morrison, who had a reputation for being tough as nails. Her office was closed for the holiday weekend, but I left a detailed message explaining the situation. Patricia called me back within an hour. "Mrs. Davis, I just listened to your voicemail," she said. "I'm so sorry this happened to you. Let's talk about your options." We spoke for over an hour. Patricia explained that because Kevin and Brittany had been living in my house for over 2 years, they did technically have tenant rights in Illinois. I couldn't just lock them out without following proper eviction procedures. But given what had happened, what Patricia called hostile and abusive behavior, we had grounds for an immediate eviction notice. "We'll file the paperwork on Monday when the courts open," Patricia said. "You'll need to formally serve them with eviction papers. Given the circumstances, I believe we can get an expedited hearing. You might be able to have them out by Christmas." "Christmas?" I repeated. "That's a month away." "I know it seems like a long time," Patricia said sympathetically. "But legally, that's actually quite fast for an eviction. In the meantime, you need to document everything. Do you have any evidence of their behavior?" I thought about it. "I have text messages, some emails. I can get statements from my daughter Rachel and her family about what happened on Thanksgiving." "Perfect. Gather all of that. Also, if they come back to the house, do not let them in. They gave up their right to access when they left voluntarily. If they try to force their way in, call the police immediately." Kevin called me that afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious what he'd say. "Mom, we need to come get the rest of our stuff," he said. No apology, no acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just a demand. "You can't come in the house," I said calmly. "What do you mean I can't come in?" "My stuff is there. I changed the locks, and I'm in the process of filing formal eviction papers. My lawyer will be in touch with you next week." There was silence on the other end. Then, "You changed the locks? Mom, that's illegal. We live there." "Not anymore," I said. "You left voluntarily. And after what you did, you're not welcome back. You can't do this." Kevin's voice was rising. "That's our home." "No," I said firmly. "It's my home. It's always been my home. You were guests who overstayed your welcome and abused my hospitality. Now you're being formally evicted. Mom, we have nowhere to go." "That's not my problem, Kevin. You should have thought about that before you fed me dog food and laughed about it." "It was just a joke. Then you have a very sick sense of humor," I said. "Goodbye, Kevin." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong. Stronger than I'd felt in years. Kevin called 6 more times that day. I didn't answer. Then Brittany started calling, leaving increasingly angry voicemails about how I was a vindictive old woman, and they were going to sue me, and I'd regret this. Let them try, I thought. That weekend, I went through my house room by room and removed everything that belonged to Kevin and Brittany. Their clothes, their toiletries, their electronics, their books, everything. I packed it all into boxes and garbage bags, the stuff that was mine that they'd taken, the decorative items, the kitchen things, the furniture they'd replaced. I either brought back from the basement or ordered new replacements online. By Sunday night, my house looked like mine again. I'd put my family photos back on the mantel. My comfortable old couch was back in the living room. My kitchen was organized the way I liked it. It felt like I could breathe again. Monday morning, Patricia filed the eviction papers. Because of the severity of what had happened, she included statements from Rachel, Tom, and even the kids about the dog food incident. The court agreed to an expedited hearing. Kevin and Brittany had to be formally served with the papers. The sheriff's deputy found them at a motel on the outskirts of town. Kevin called me immediately after being served, and he was furious. An eviction? Are you serious? Mom, this is insane. You should have thought about the consequences before you humiliated me in front of my family, I said calmly. We said we were sorry. No, I corrected him. You didn't. Not once have either of you apologized. You've called me dramatic, unreasonable, and vindictive, but you've never once said you were sorry for what you did. Fine, I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I want you to mean it, I said. But we both know you don't. The eviction hearing was scheduled for December 20th. In the meantime, Kevin and Brittany had to stay at that motel, paying by the week. Kevin kept calling, alternating between angry demands and pitiful pleas. Brittany sent me long text messages about how cruel I was, how I was destroying their lives, how they'd never forgive me for this. I saved every message as evidence. Rachel was my rock during this time. She came over several times a week, helped me prepare for the hearing, reminded me that I was doing the right thing. My grandkids made me cards that said, "We love you, Grandma," and drew pictures of turkeys. Normal turkeys, not dog food turkeys, as Jacob specifically clarified. The hardest part was facing the fact that my relationship with Kevin might be permanently destroyed. He was my son. I'd raised him, loved him, sacrificed for him, and he'd betrayed that in the worst possible way. Could we ever come back from this? December 20th arrived, cold and snowy. I dressed in my best outfit, a navy blue suit that made me feel professional and put together. Patricia met me at the courthouse. "Remember," she said, "this is just a formality. We have overwhelming evidence. The judge will rule in your favor." Kevin and Brittany were already there with their own lawyer, a young guy who looked fresh out of law school. Kevin wouldn't meet my eyes. Brittany glared at me like I was the villain in this situation. The hearing lasted about an hour. Patricia presented our evidence, the statements from Rachel and her family, the text messages from Brittany, the timeline of their stay, and the escalating, disrespectful behavior. She described the dog food incident in detail, and I saw the judge's expression change from neutral to disgusted. Kevin and Brittany's lawyer argued that I was being vindictive, that the dog food incident was just a prank, that Kevin and Brittany had been contributing to the household and had tenant rights. Patricia countered with proof that they'd barely paid anything toward bills or groceries in 2.5 years. She showed bank statements proving I'd covered almost everything. She presented the case that they hadn't been tenants. They'd been guests who had abused my hospitality. The judge listened to everything, looked through all the evidence, and then asked Kevin and Brittany directly, "Did you feed Mrs. Davis dog food on Thanksgiving?" There was a long pause. Finally, Kevin said quietly, "Yes, Your Honor." "And did you think this was funny?" Another pause. "At the time, yes." The judge shook his head. "I've seen a lot of cases in my career, but this might be one of the most disrespectful things I've heard. Mrs. Davis opened her home to you for over 2 years. You took advantage of her generosity, disrespected her space, and then humiliated her in front of her family. I'm ruling in favor of Mrs. Davis. You have 7 days to remove any remaining belongings from the property. If you fail to do so, those belongings will become property of Mrs. Davis to dispose of as she sees fit. You are also ordered to return the keys you still have to Mrs. Davis's residence. This eviction is effective immediately." He banged his gavel, and it was over. Kevin and Brittany looked stunned. Their lawyer was shuffling papers, trying to find something else to argue. But there was nothing left to say. As we left the courtroom, Kevin finally approached me. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. "Please, can we talk about this?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. He looked tired, defeated. And for the first time since Thanksgiving, I saw something that might have been genuine remorse in his eyes. "Kevin, what you did was unforgivable," I said quietly. "You didn't just feed me dog food. You betrayed my trust. You let Brittany treat me terribly in my own home for years. You chose her cruelty over your mother's dignity." "I know," he whispered. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom." "Are you?" I asked. "Or are you just sorry that there are consequences?" He didn't have an answer for that. I turned and walked away with Patricia. Behind me, I heard Brittany berating Kevin for being weak and groveling to that woman. That woman. That's all I'd ever been to her. 7 days later, on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, Kevin came to collect their remaining belongings. He came alone. Apparently, he and Brittany had separated. She'd moved back in with her parents, and he was staying with a friend. I let him in, watching as he packed up the last of their things. He moved slowly, like he was hoping I'd stop him and tell him everything would be okay. But I didn't. As he was leaving with the last box, he paused at the door. "Mom, I really am sorry," he said. "About everything. The dog food, the way we treated you, all of it. I was a terrible son." I felt tears prick my eyes, but I kept my voice steady. "Yes, you were. Can you ever forgive me?" I took a deep breath. "Maybe someday, Kevin, but not today. Not next week. Not anytime soon. You need to understand what you did. You need to really, truly understand why it was wrong. And I need time to heal from what you and Brittany put me through." "I do understand," he said desperately. "I was blind. I let Brittany manipulate me into thinking you were the problem, when she was the one being horrible. I see that now. Do you see it because you genuinely realized what you did wrong? Or do you see it because you're facing the consequences?" I asked. "Because there's a difference, Kevin." He looked down at his feet. "Both, I guess." When the judge was describing what we did, hearing it out loud like that from someone else, I felt sick. I couldn't believe I'd done that to you. And then Brittany blamed me for not defending her more. Said it was my fault we got evicted. And I realized she never took responsibility for anything. She never once said she was sorry. She just kept saying we shouldn't have gotten caught. "Shouldn't have gotten caught," I repeated. "Not that you shouldn't have done it." "Yeah," Kevin said quietly. "That's when I knew I couldn't stay with her. We're getting divorced. I already filed the papers." "I'm sorry your marriage is ending," I said. And I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want my son to hurt. "I'm not," he said. "I should have listened to you from the beginning. You never said anything directly against her, but I could tell you didn't trust her. I thought you were just being overprotective or jealous of her or something. But you saw what she really was, didn't you?" "I saw red flags," I admitted. "But I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to believe she made you happy." "She did at first," Kevin said. "Or I thought she did. But looking back, I think I was just infatuated with her. She was beautiful and exciting, and I thought that was enough. I didn't see how shallow she was, how cruel she could be. Or maybe I did see it, and I just ignored it because I didn't want to admit I'd made a mistake." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Kevin said, "Rachel told me what you did after we left on Thanksgiving, how you spent the next day getting the locks changed and calling lawyers. She said you were like a different person, strong and decisive, and not taking any crap from anyone." "Your sister has been very supportive," I said. "She also told me I'm an idiot, and she might never forgive me for what I did to you," Kevin said with a sad smile. "She's not wrong. Rachel loves you," I said. "She's angry at you right now, as she should be. But she'll forgive you eventually. We both will. But you need to earn that forgiveness, Kevin. You need to show us through your actions, not just your words, that you've changed." "How do I do that?" he asked. "That's something you need to figure out yourself," I said. "But a good start would be getting therapy, understanding why you let someone treat anyone, the way Brittany treated me. Understanding why you thought humiliating me was funny. Working on yourself so you never do something like that again." Kevin nodded slowly. "I'll do that. I promise." "Good," I said. "Now you should go. I have plans this afternoon." It was a lie. I didn't have plans, but I needed him to leave. I needed space to process all of this. Kevin picked up his last box and walked to his car. Before he drove away, he looked back at the house one more time. I couldn't read his expression from where I stood at the door, but I saw him wipe his eyes before he got in the car. After he left, I walked through my empty house. It was truly mine again. Every room, every corner, every piece of furniture. Mine. The silence felt different now. Not lonely, but peaceful. Like a weight had been lifted. I thought about that Thanksgiving. About the moment I realized what I was eating. About the laughter and humiliation. And then I thought about the judge's gavel coming down, officially evicting them. About handing them those eviction papers just after Christmas. The ultimate gift they'd earned. They served me dog food at Thanksgiving, so I served them eviction papers for Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on me. Over the next few months, life slowly returned to normal. Better than normal, actually. I had my space back, my dignity back, my sense of self back. I redecorated the house exactly how I wanted it. I started taking painting classes on Tuesday evenings. I joined a book club that actually met at times convenient for me. I volunteered more at the library. I went on a trip to visit my college roommate in Arizona. I did all the things I'd wanted to do but couldn't because I'd been too busy accommodating Kevin and Brittany, too busy trying to keep the peace, too busy being the understanding mother and mother-in-law. Rachel and her family visited more often. The kids loved having Grandma's house back the way it used to be. Emma said she liked the old couch better because it was squishier and better for cuddling. Jacob said he was glad the mean people were gone. Children are honest in ways adults often aren't. Kevin called me every week. At first, the conversations were stilted and awkward. He'd ask how I was, tell me about his therapy sessions, update me on his divorce proceedings. I'd respond politely but distantly. I wasn't ready to let him back in, not fully. But slowly, gradually, things improved. He got an apartment closer to where I lived. He started coming to Sunday dinners when Rachel and her family were there. He brought flowers one day, my favorite daisies, and said they were just because. He offered to help me with yard work and actually showed up to do it. He fixed my leaky kitchen faucet without me having to ask. Small things, consistent things, the kind of things that show someone is actually trying, not just saying the right words. About 6 months after the eviction, on a Sunday afternoon, Kevin asked if we could talk privately. We sat on my back porch with glasses of iced tea, and he said, "Mom, my therapist helped me understand something. I was angry at you for years and didn't even realize it." "Angry at me?" I said, surprised. "For what?" "For being so perfect," he said. "After Dad died, you never fell apart. You never complained. You just kept going, working 2 jobs, taking care of us, making sure we had everything we needed. And I think somewhere deep down, I resented you for it. Kevin, let me finish," he said gently. "I resented you because I wanted you to be weak sometimes. I wanted you to need help sometimes. I wanted to feel like I could take care of you the way you took care of me. But you never needed anything. You were always so strong, so independent. And when Brittany started criticizing you, part of me liked it. Because finally someone was saying you weren't perfect, that you had flaws, that maybe you needed us after all. I felt tears welling up. I wasn't perfect, Kevin. I was terrified all the time after your father died. I cried myself to sleep most nights. I struggled constantly. I just didn't let you kids see it, because I didn't want you to be scared." "I know that now," Kevin said. "But I didn't know it then. And Brittany exploited that resentment. She made me think that standing up to you, that putting you in your place, was somehow healthy, that you were too controlling and needed to be knocked down a peg. I see now how toxic that thinking was." "Thank you for telling me this," I said quietly. I'm telling you because I want you to understand that what I did wasn't about you. Kevin continued. It was about my own issues that I never dealt with. You didn't deserve any of it. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the son you deserved all along. We both cried then. And we hugged. And it felt like the first real, honest moment we'd had in years. Kevin kept his word. He continued therapy. He worked on himself. He apologized to Rachel and her family for his behavior, for exposing the kids to that scene on Thanksgiving. He even wrote a letter to Tom, thanking him for standing up for me, when Kevin himself hadn't. About 8 months after the eviction, Kevin met someone new. Her name was Jennifer, and she was a nurse at the hospital. She was kind, soft-spoken, and treated me with genuine respect from day one. She never once asked about my finances or made comments about my age or memory. She just treated me like a person worthy of respect. The first time Kevin brought her to meet me, I was nervous. I'd been burned so badly by Brittany that I wasn't sure I could trust my judgment anymore. But within minutes of meeting Jennifer, I felt at ease. She helped me in the kitchen without taking over. She asked about my life with genuine interest. She laughed at my stories and shared her own. She was real. After dinner, when Kevin was loading the dishwasher, Jennifer came and sat next to me on the couch. "Mrs. Davis," she said quietly, "Kevin told me everything that happened with his ex-wife. What they did to you. I just want you to know that I think you're incredibly brave for standing up for yourself the way you did. And I want you to know that I would never, ever treat you with anything less than the respect and kindness you deserve." I looked at this young woman, 15 years younger than Kevin, and I saw something genuine in her eyes. "Thank you, Jennifer. That means a lot. I also want you to know that Kevin is a different person now than he was then," she continued. "He talks about what he did with such regret. He's worked really hard to understand why he made those choices, and to make sure he never makes them again. I know that doesn't erase what happened, but I thought you should know." "I can see the difference in him," I said honestly. "He's softer now, more aware, more present." Jennifer smiled. "He said you taught him everything important in life, and then he forgot all those lessons when it mattered most, but he's remembered them now." That made me tear up. "He said that?" "He says it all the time," Jennifer said. "He talks about you like you're the strongest person he knows, which, from what I've heard, you are." Kevin came back into the room then, and Jennifer gave my hand a quick squeeze before getting up. I watched them together, the way Kevin looked at her with genuine affection, the way she brought out something gentler in him. This was what love should look like, not what he'd had with Brittany, that toxic, shallow thing that brought out the worst in him. But this, partnership, respect, genuine care. A year after the eviction, we had Thanksgiving again. This time it was at Rachel's house because nobody wanted to risk triggering bad memories at my place. But I helped cook, and we used my recipes, and we set the table with my good china that Rachel had borrowed for the occasion. Kevin was there with Jennifer, Rachel and Tom and the kids, and me, just family. Real family, the kind that lifts each other up instead of tearing each other down. Before we ate, Rachel asked if anyone wanted to say what they were thankful for. Kevin spoke up first. "I'm thankful for second chances," he said, looking at me, "and for a mother who loved me enough to teach me a hard lesson when I needed it most, even though it hurt at the time. It was the wake-up call I desperately needed." Jennifer went next. "I'm thankful for this family who's welcomed me so kindly, and for Mrs. Davis, who raised an amazing man even though he lost his way for a while." When it was my turn, I looked around the table at these people I loved. I'm thankful for my family, for children who stand up for what's right, for grandchildren who remind me what pure love looks like, for the strength to set boundaries when I need to, and for the grace to forgive when the time is right. We ate dinner together, and it was perfect. The turkey was moist. The stuffing was delicious, And every single thing on every single plate was exactly what it was supposed to be. No tricks, no humiliation, just good food and good company, and the knowledge that we'd all survived something difficult and come out stronger on the other side. After dinner, as we were clearing the table, Kevin pulled me aside. "Mom, I have something for you," he said. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $15,000 and a letter. The check was made out to me, and the letter explained that he'd calculated roughly what he and Brittany should have contributed for rent, utilities, and food over the 2.5 years they lived with me, plus interest. The letter apologized again for taking advantage of my generosity and said this was just a start on paying me back for everything I'd done for him over the years. "Kevin, you don't have to." I started. "Yes, I do," he said firmly. "I do have to. You gave me a place to live when I needed it, and I repaid you with cruelty. This doesn't make us even. Nothing could ever make us even, but it's a start. Please take it." I folded the check and put it back in the envelope. "Thank you, son." He hugged me then, really hugged me, and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Now here I am, 2 years after that terrible Thanksgiving, and I can finally tell this story without feeling the sharp sting of humiliation. It's become something else now. A reminder of my own strength, a lesson learned, a bridge crossed. People ask me sometimes if I regret evicting Kevin, if I wish I'd handled it differently. And my answer is always no, because what Kevin and Brittany did wasn't just disrespectful. It was abusive. And I'd spent 2.5 years being abused in my own home, making excuses for it, trying to be the bigger person, hoping things would change. The eviction was necessary, not just legally but emotionally. I needed to draw that line. I needed to say, this is not acceptable, and there are consequences for treating people this way. And Kevin needed it too. He needed to face real consequences for his actions. He needed to lose something he took for granted. His comfortable situation at my house, his marriage to Brittany, his relationship with me, in order to understand the weight of what he'd done. If I'd just let it go, if I'd accepted his half-hearted apologies and let them stay, nothing would have changed. Kevin wouldn't have gotten therapy. He wouldn't have recognized the toxic patterns in his relationship with Brittany. He wouldn't have become the man he is now. Someone who takes responsibility, who treats people with respect, who understands that actions have consequences. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to hold them accountable. I think about Brittany sometimes, too. Last I heard, she'd gotten divorced from that older man she married and was engaged to someone else, another man with money. I don't think she ever learned anything from what happened. For her, I was just an obstacle that got in her way, and she moved on to her next target without reflection or growth. But that's not my problem anymore. I did what I needed to do to protect myself, and what she does with her life from here is up to her. As for me, I'm thriving. At 70 years old, I'm living my best life. I have my home exactly the way I want it. I have a relationship with my son that's honest and real. I have a daughter who's always been in my corner. I have grandchildren who love me. I have hobbies and friends and purpose, and I have my dignity back. That's the most important thing. For 2.5 years, I let other people make me feel small in my own home. I let them convince me that my feelings didn't matter, that I was being too sensitive, that I should just accept being treated poorly because they were family. Never again. I learned that you can be kind without being a doormat. You can be loving without being a pushover. You can forgive without forgetting. And you can set boundaries without being cruel. The dog food, Thanksgiving, was the worst day of my life in many ways. But it was also a turning point. It was the moment I stopped accepting unacceptable behavior. The moment I stood up for myself. The moment I said, I deserve better than this. And I did deserve better. We all do. If there's someone in your life treating you the way Kevin and Brittany treated me, whether it's family, friends, or anyone else, Please hear this. You don't have to accept it. You're not being dramatic by having boundaries. You're not being mean by demanding respect. You're not being unreasonable by expecting basic human decency. Stand up for yourself. Get help if you need it. Lawyers, therapists, supportive family members, whoever you need. Document everything. Protect yourself legally and emotionally. And don't let anyone make you feel guilty for it. You deserve to feel safe and respected in your own home. You deserve to be treated with dignity. You deserve better than dog food served with a side of mockery. And if the people in your life can't give you that basic respect, maybe it's time to serve them some eviction papers of your own. My name is Eleanor Davis. I'm 70 years old. They served me dog food at Thanksgiving as a joke. So I served them eviction papers for Christmas, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because I'm worth more than that. And so are you. Stand strong. Set boundaries. Protect yourself. And never ever let anyone make you eat dog food, literally or metaphorically, and tell you it's for your own good. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone who needs to hear it, because we're never too old to stand up for ourselves, never too old to say enough is enough, and never too old to fight for the respect and dignity we deserve. God bless you all. And remember, you're stronger than you know, braver than you think, and worthy of so much more than you might believe right now. Happy Thanksgiving. May your dinner always be exactly what it's supposed to be, shared with people who truly love and respect you.